Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Dogma podcast, where we talk about recent and old classics. I'm Jose, and I'm joined as every week by my awesome friend Blake.
Hi, Jose. I'm happy to be here, and it's interesting we're watching each other on a screen. How could that affect our mind?
I mean, you know that the screen is the eye of the mind.
Yeah. What is it? It's not the iris. Anyway, yes. This screen is now part of my brain.
Exactly. And probably for some people may already expect like what we're going to be discussing about, but we're going to be talking about the Cronenberg classic Videodrome from 1981.
IMDb says 83, man. Get with it.
83?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that The Thing is from 81. This is from 83.
Got it.
Or, yeah, there is like a bit of a difference. But yeah, we're talking about Cronenberg classic Videodrome. And I'm not completely sure why did we pick this one?
Because
Were
we've
we
been
talking
kind of
about,
talking
like, body
about body
horror?
horrors, so we did The Substance. Yeah, that's why.
And other stuff.
And other stuff.
Other stuff. Other stuff. But yeah, and I think that Videodrome is one of those movies that I only watched once, probably like after college, and I was trying to get into a bit more into cult movies. Also, like just exploring a bit the body horror and late 70s, early 80s horror genre. And this was like one of the referenced ones. I had feelings. I had already preconceived ideas before this rewatching, but it was something that I was like really looking forward. And the main motivator, what I told you about this, is because recently, I mean, I don't know when this recording is going to go out, but Halloween was recently in our past, in our rear window, and my boyfriend got a suggestion from a friend of his of watching Videodrome for Halloween.
Oh, interesting.
And I actually told him, it's like, I wasn't here in Chicago during that time. And I told him, like, just wait and I will watch it with you as soon as I land. Because I've been meaning to rewatch Videodrome for a very, very long time.
So when would you say you first saw it?
Probably when it was like 20 years ago, maybe?
Okay. So I went into this viewing 100% confident I had seen this before. And as the film went on, now I'm about 90% certain I've never seen it. I had never seen it.
So for me, it was because I remember like a couple of quotes, you know, it's like, anyone, this is not a spoiler or anything, but long live the new flesh. It is like the mantra of body horror, basically. And it comes from this movie. Yeah. And the second one is CJ in Pittsburgh. But those two things is that my brain got it like completely like recorded with fire. Everything else, I think that I was thinking about scanners. So I was expecting that when does the head explode? Oh no, it's not on that one. That's on scanners. That's a different story.
Wait, does the head explosion happen in The Brood too?
I don't remember.
It is
I think that there
scanners?
is like something similar. Yeah. I mean, there is always like to some extent, a head has to explode or decompose in a body horror movie. Otherwise, it's not body horror.
All right, good to know.
Yeah, and don't make the rules. They did.
Cronenberg
Like
made body
Cronenberg,
horror
Carpenter. Yeah, they made it together. But yeah, so that's the reason why I picked it up. Is there was a bit more of hey, I'm interested in rewatching this, and there was like this opportunity, like after Halloween. Do you want me to summarize it? Do you want to summarize it?
Why don't you go ahead and try, and then I will fill in any gaps I find.
Okay, sounds good. So this movie follows Max. I think that is like the name of the main
Max
character. Max Wren. That's true. That he's like the producer for a a cable channel that basically prides themselves into just having like very transgressive content. You know, that it can be like porn, but just like pushing the envelope of what can be seen on the little screen at home. So he tends to just like try to look for more porn content that he thinks that the audience would enjoy. And one day,
It's not just
one of the
porn. It's
employees-
porn, violence, anything. we don't
violence,
want
yeah,
kids to see,
whatever,
yeah.
yeah. and I think that is like very timely from because on the 80s, 70s, and 80s is that there were like many conversations about like what was right for displaying on TV, and I think that it lasted like to the 90s. From the 2000s, I think that we don't care that much about that, or at least I don't hear like so much polemic about like, oh my god, is that this shouldn't be on the screen.
We should watch The People versus Larry Flint, which is actually the landmark
Yeah.
Supreme Court case that stars Edward Norton.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
No, it's The People versus Larry Flynn is Woody Harrelson.
Yep, I constantly confuse that with a different film. But it does have whole singer and murderer Courtney Love.
Oh, well, murder. Okay, let's just leave it there.
Sorry,
I think that we're going
back
a
to
bit off
Videodrome.
topic. Okay, but the thing is, Max talking with one of with employee friend guy that is called Harlan, I think, and he's a bit more of a pirate of the wavelengths. So he captured like a signal that initially they think that it comes from Malaysia, where we see like basically a snuff movie that we see like a woman getting tortured, and we are told, we don't see it on the screen, that there is going to be, besides violence and sex, there is going to be mutilation and murder on those videos. So Max becomes.
But just to be clear, he believes at that time that it's a production, like a fictional TV show.
Yeah, at the beginning he's it's super well acted, super well performed, you know. But we see him like falling more and more obsessed with Videodrome. That is like the name of the product that he is watching. And everyone that sees it is like his girlfriend, I think. Is that she also Nick? She gets obsessed with that, and she starts like becoming a bit more of a masochistic, and she disappears, like going to try to be part of the show in Pittsburgh that they discovered that is actually recorded in Pittsburgh. The movie progresses. We discover like some Catholic church where actually one organization like driven by the Oblivions, they are showing TV to poor people that they are deprived from Catholic exposure, and that's the reason why they are incomplete on their lives. That's not like too well explained or anything, but we discover that like the original founder of this church was like the one that created Videodrome for another, with other people from another company, and then he got murdered because his vision was not completely aligned.
Is this
with
Barry
it.
Convex?
Uh,
Oh, no, this is Oblivion. Got it.
It is Oblivion. Yeah. So is that? But all of this is actually told by her, by his daughter. That she actually like gives some tapes to Max, and these tapes are basically what is left from Doctor Oblivion. And he recorded like thousands of tapes during his life, just with every potential occasion that it may happen. So he doesn't really talk with him, but when he plays tapes, things become like weirder, like the TV becomes alive. It's a bit more about like just like the feedback loop in between what he wants to see, like suffering hallucinations that they are caused because being exposed to Videodrome, and then the TV like comes alive, but we don't know if it's real or it's just like how he's seeing the world, and we see like this, how do you say, like conspiracy like plan that they had for everyone to display Videodrome to the whole world, that is going to be like transforming the mindset of everyone, is going to be like pushing society forward. But Max breaks away from that mentality, or like that kind of slavery that he was being exposed by Videodrome, and he becomes like the spearheaded of defending against Videodrome, and he has like a BCR opening in his body where he can put tapes.
I mean, let's be
it.
clear, it's
This is
a
a pretty
vagina.
fucking weird. It's a vagina that it takes tapes. Sure. So that's the reason what I would say is a BCR. And it gets like super weird, a bit convoluted into what happens. And the end, I don't know if you want me to just like talk about the end or not.
Let's just leave the finale out. And I think you did a great job in giving a synopsis. This film stops being easily describable after a certain point. if you've seen Cronenberg's other films, well, not the most recent stuff that's fairly coherent, but the more kind of stream of consciousness, that's not the right phrase, but it's just out there. And you just have to suspend your disbelief and just kind of buy into like, oh, sometimes body parts just appear on other body parts, and
yep, and someone explodes just because they have to explode.
Because it's body horror.
Yep. So, did you like it?
I did like it. I totally understand why this is a cult classic. I get that there are ideas here. There's some complexity. It's actually extremely meta. If you think that really the hypothesis of some of the characters in the film is that the TV has basically become part of us, part of our minds, part of our bodies, and whoever controls TV is going to control people. And we watch Max go through as somebody who is the president of a TV network, but then ultimately becomes a complete slave to things that he's either seeing or hallucinating on TV that relates to his interest in darkness. I get that there are a lot of layers here, and in that way, I think it's a well done. It's storytelling at some of its most interesting. At the end of the day, I don't know how important the things that were being said are. I also understand that in 81, like, this film could absolutely be talking about the internet, like, in a horrifyingly accurate way. In fact, there's a scene by Dr. Oblivion where he's like, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say is that we made that reference when we were watching it like several times that we were like, oh, if you're saying that in 83, just wait until 2024. Is it like, oh, we're a very overstimulated society, so just wait. So
there's this comment by Dr. Oblivion where he's like, obviously that's not my real name, but it's my TV name, and soon in the future we're all going to have fake names so that we can basically explore the darkness within inside us. And if, the internet is anything, it's made us the best of humanity, and also like given us the opportunity to see the most fucked up shit that we want. And being safe to explore those things in private, how does that affect us as a whole? Like, I get it, but I feel like it loses a little bit of its punch after 50 years, just because it's like, these are themes explored a million times, and I get it.
I agree with you. I think that is like the premise itself is super interesting. I didn't even remember that it was like so interesting about like, this is how TV is. That you have heard like many times from your parents, TV is going to be like rotting your brain. This is literally rotting your brain and just converting you into something else. So sometimes, and I think that he does the same with The Brood. We don't need to talk about it, but I think that Cronenberg is pretty good into just putting like some of the society fears or society tensions of the time into translating into this kind of horror world. So during the 80s, as we were saying, is that we had the fear about the influence of TV on us, and he actually takes it in a bit more of a literal manner and just saying, what about if it transforms like our minds, like in a literal manner, and even mutate our brain. It tells that it's like, it gives you a tumor, you start seeing hallucinations, and these hallucinations actually change your body. So where is the line between one thing and the other? And I think that he does it fairly decent.
He does. He does it very decent.
Yeah. But is that the more the movie progresses, I had the feeling that he goes more and more wild to places that actually like the analogies or like the imprint that he's trying to create with his message, it gets like watered down. And I think that another movie that we watched a long time ago, that is Network, that is from 76, does a similar premise way better. Like how it progresses, like, okay, as the movie progresses and it becomes like more and more absurd about like how it affects society, is a way better executed. When here, I feel it's like, okay, the story is pretty good. When things start becoming weird, it starts like just, how do you say, like flantering, like a bit more like hesitant. And then I feel like, sure, good try. See you in Pittsburgh. But in Network, I felt like the other way around. That is like, you start strong and then you go like skyrocketing, like how absurd. And I remember that you used the expression of like the frog in the boiling water.
I was like, we're gonna mention this when we talk about this.
Yes, yes. And the thing is that the frog in the boiling water works well in network because it's a bit more of a nuanced progression, and it is like, holy shit, it's like we got to this point, but it makes sense. In Videodrome, it's like, no, it's like when it goes weird, it goes like full on bizarro wall. And I think that at that point, Cronenberg is not a subtle director. And that's something that it loses me.
I see what you're saying, and fans of Cronenberg are going to come at me for this. But I believe, at least in Cronenberg's body horror films, he's interested in making a statement about society or whatever hypothesis he wants to put out there in the beginning of his film. So we see that too much TV gives people brain tumors, and then they do bad things, or they, have their lives ruined. But then after some point, he's like, I made my statement. There's not really too much to explore beyond that. I'm just going to go deep into body horror at this point and have these things that are related to the statement. But it's not like he's progressing his argument moving forward, being like, and then think about this. No, it's just like, and then
I made my point.
I'm going to fuck my hole slit with my gun because that just makes sense.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be attaching my gun to a hand, and then the gun is going to be like coming through. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a bit more. It's like, hey, I already did my part. I'm making a statement on the first act, so now I'm going to go wild. I already made the excuse. Now I'm going wild with this, and I feel like that's the part of. It can be fine. It can be a fun movie, but also at the same time, I don't think that it's realizes all of his potential as some kind of a statement. Long live the new flesh is not a statement.
Yeah, I can. So the spoiler alert. Now we're just gonna not worry about saying whatever. At the end, so Max is brainwashed into murdering his coworkers at the station that he's the president of.
Channel 83, yeah.
Yeah, so that he can give over control of the channel to the evil people running Videodrome. He ends up murdering them, and then he kind of runs out into the shipyard, like a place where these abandoned ships, a harbor for ships that have been condemned, and he just kind of goes into a ship, and then there happens to be a TV where he continues to have hallucinations. Anyway, my point is, like, once he got to that point, I was like, okay, so it doesn't really matter where this film ends up. It was like,
yep,
it was just a ride, and the ride gets super fucking weird, but it's not like a coherent ride towards the end of the film.
Nope. The thing that I remember the most is and this is another spoiler, when Harlan meets Max at the end again in the shop. And he was like, oh, I had this tape, and it's going to be the shit. And he tries to just like put it in his VCR vagina, and then when he removes the arm, it's like he has a maraca for hand. And I always remember like, oh, he actually had a maraca maker. It was a maraca maker all along, and then he explodes. It's such I don't want to even like make sense. And maybe there is a part of a statement there that is like, hey, TV may actually degenerate to a point that is not about like the sense that it makes or not. It's about like the shock value that we can get.
And I'm sure that Cronenberg, he's a smart dude. He knows what he wants to write. I'm sure there's like an extensive metaphorical connection to the vagina dentata and the stomach, like all of it. But it's not that relevant to me or the things I'm interested in as a viewer.
Yeah. I think that we're on the same page, So entertaining to watch, entertaining to ride the ride, but it's a ride. It's not really like a time.
And I would say it's an important installment in the body horror genre. Like, I think if anyone's interested in Cronenberg or body horror, like, you can't not see this film. It's important for a number of other reasons. And I'm fine with that being its place.
So let's go over the questions. So would you watch it again?
Yeah, but it's going to be a while before I'm going to wait long enough for me to have forgotten most of it.
Yeah, I would watch it again. I mean, this is definitely not a movie to watch in a plane.
Oh God, no.
This is not like a movie that it could pan out like properly with neighbors around. But yeah, it's a movie that definitely in 2-3 years I will watch again.
Yep.
You know?
Same here.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah, in exactly the same way I just recommended it. Interested in Cronenberg, body horror? This is an
Yeah.
important installment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for example, and we talked like not too long ago about The Substance. If someone told me that is like, oh my god, The Substance was so creative with all of these like body manipulation and stuff, I would say like, just go back to this. Just go back to the 80s, like late 70s, early 80s, when everyone was going crazy about like the stuff that you could do with makeup, not even like CGI. It's like, just go with this, where you cannot have like easily like Demi Moore face attached to anything. So I think that this is something that for someone that is starting on cinema, that is like, oh, I'm starting to get into horror, I want to explore like other decades of stuff. I think that is an easy recommendation.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Would you remember it?
I'm going to forget the vast majority of this film, mostly because it's, like we said, a little bit nonsensical at times. It's not like this is a, conflict resolution. It doesn't work like that. So yes, I will forget this.
Yeah, for me the proof was that I thought that this was a Scanners.
Yep.
Mix up. I remember like the Maraca Maker. I remember I was like, okay, what is the head exploding? I remember that it was at the beginning. It's like, wait, oh yeah, that's a different one. So I don't expect like even remember like the premise. Only remember like the PCR. I won't call it what you call it. The PCR on the stomach, and then just like the explosion and the long live the new flesh.
I appreciate you not wanting to say
anything?
stomach vagina.
I won't say it. Is there anything artistic about Videodrome?
Yeah, I mean, so as absurdist as the script is, it still takes a lot of talent to come up with like this sort of absurdist writing, surrealist writing. I think the makeup is incredible.
Yeah.
I think James Wood is surprisingly nuanced, even in this performance. And I can't stand that like red pill Republican asshole, but I was actually impressed with him in this film.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty of artistic,
Yeah.
and Cronenberg's vision is really unique. You can't say that. You can't not say that.
Yeah. He has like a visual language that is completely unique to him, and he plays with it masterfully. So for me, it's like, yeah, all of the visual effects, all of the visual language, even if it doesn't resonate 100% with him, I find it super artistically powerful.
And we didn't dedicate too much time to talking about the special effects, but there are some special effects in this film that blew me away today. Basically, at some point, James Wood has sex with the television, not through like penile penetration, but the screen is like a bubble and hands reach out, and it's really incredible. Like to this day, they're impressive special effects. When they're not CGI, what do they call them? Practical effects? It's still,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Is Videodrome a timeless piece?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I feel like it describes the internet better than television shows how timeless it is. I mean, it's rooted in the technology of 1981. That's true.
And the fears.
But we still have those same fears. Like, I stumbled on a snuff video by accident at 17 the first time I had access to broadband internet. I downloaded Madonna's new album, but actually it was a snuff film, and it like fucked me up. It really fucked me up, and that's like going to be a universal experience for people with access to technology.
Yeah, okay. I was debating between like yes or no, but yeah, you have convinced me that this is a timeless piece. Not from the A is to B, but it's more about like what we consider as a society acceptable or not, and people that are going to be like pushing it in some direction that may be like above like that threshold, and like the fear of what kind of damage this is going to be like making to the whole society.
And also, I mean, look at like the horror of 1981 compared to like anything by Eli Roth. Like things are getting more. What's the phrase that she uses?
stimulated.
overstimulated time. Like the times are only getting more stimulated. So
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't look like there is a limit, about like how overstimulated you can be. Uh, would you turn Videodrome into a TV show?
I don't think so. I mean, this is a quick 90 minutes. It could have been a little bit shorter even, but there's at least Cronenberg understand the scope of the story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is perfect length. 90 minutes is absolutely fine for what it is. Could this movie have been a short?
I'm not gonna lie, it could have been 59 minutes, and I probably would have gotten the same out of it. I don't think this could be like a 20-minute short, no, but it could have been shorter.
Yeah, yeah. The world building. Well, actually, I'm going to go with no, because I like to spend like the time on this world building. I wish that he spent more on the world building. I would have even been okay with like, hey, just give me 10 more minutes of just describing what are like the other TV stations like giving me.
But there's a different question. Like, you want to see more
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the world, but
Yeah. But what I mean is like I wouldn't actually like trim it. I actually think that is a lengthwise is like the descent into madness is like, it could have been better or worse, but I think that it requires time
got it.
for just like playing out. So for me, it's like it's fine, and I would have even like thrown some more content. Not a TV show, but I would have thrown like a bit more content or replaced some parts. And I think that that actually answer that do you think this movie could have been better for me is like yes, if you give me more about this world that makes me feel like reaction from more people about like the content that this network puts in there, or like more about like the world itself that where this story is taking place.
So for me, what is the question we're answering?
Do you think this movie could have been better?
So I'm not complaining that much about the tone, but if we had seen the care that he put into the most recent version of Crimes of the Future,
So the future, yeah.
there was a little bit more dedicated to understanding the main characters and kind of the logic behind that world. I would have appreciated a little bit more of that just so there was a more coherent end to it. So my answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so I think that we need to score it. I can score it first
Yes,
if you want.
please.
I'm going to go with a 7 from my side.
And I'm going to go with
I
a
like it. It
7.5.
doesn't. Okay, that's good.
Sorry,
So pretty
finish your
close by.
explanation of your score.
I was going to say that it's iconic. It's like the definition of a cult movie for me. Uh, but it doesn't stick the landing, and then at the end, it ends up like being more forgettable. It's remember you can remember it for some of the special effects or some of the specific quotes that they have on it, but it doesn't stick the message associated with it, and it becomes like a bit more of a it's one more body horror movie.
Did you watch this thinking, wow, the guy who made Blade Runner saw this movie and borrowed a lot from it?
No, you mean like Ridley Scott,
Yes.
and it was more like in '82, so before '83.
What?
Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, is from 1982.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was from before that.
No, yeah, but it's a bit more about like that dystopian, and dirty feeling to things. Is that I was even thinking about RoboCop, about Paul Verhoeven and like the dystopian Detroit that he was painting, and it's like, oh,
I haven't seen it. No spoilers, please.
okay, we should record about that one day. But I think that those are like more of a vibe from that time, like sci-fi had like a bit more of that gritty feeling to it.
Yeah, and maybe this is kind of a noir, right? In a weird way. There's like the femme fatale and
Yeah.
maybe that's what I'm thinking more than. Interesting. I expected you would like this a little bit more than me.
It didn't land so much, so it was a point of yeah, I remember these special effects and they're really well made for that time. And there is like a lot of merit on it, but it's more, I kept thinking about Network because I have been insisting my boyfriend to, hey, we need to watch Network. You're not going to believe about like how good is this movie and how applicable it is to nowadays. And no one talks about it. And people remember Videodrome, but just because it's such a reference on that world, on that universe that is body horror. So I just feel like, it's fine.
I recognize the importance that it played in the history of horror. I can fully support that.
Yeah. So that's the part that is like, okay, that's great that we have that. But there are other movies. So it's a 7 from his day. Yeah, I recognize the importance in this subgenre, but
Remind me though, you said you would rewatch it, just not soon. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I will rewatch it, but it's like in some years, when my brain has spelled it again and then I watch it and I start like, oh my god, such a good premise is going to be like a horror version of Network. And then like, no, I think that Network is a horror version of Network. So, anything else to say about Videodrome?
No. This is it's a solid movie.
Yeah, to everyone else out there, thank you so much for putting up with us.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.